Where is it being live streamed to? View stream. Well, that would be helpful. Wow. That was unexpected. The computer's catching up. Evidently, we're live. Video is unavailable. It's been removed. It's not streaming. What are you doing? Recording at least. Okay. Custom stream. Copy streaming link. Oh, well, this is good to know. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Ooh, I see. What's going on? Oh, it's under the Justinian deception. Okay. Definitely not made for children. 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 How do I change that? Learn more. Oh, I won't. Oh, there we go. And let me change it, 'cause I hadn't found the right place to actually store it. And so there we go. Now the Justinian connection, the Justinian deception is the connection. And I wanted to share with you. China's revolution and being real. They know how it feels when we don't get to be real. Can you feel what it's like to be the one that you've been waiting for, my son? Can you see the restream application is what we need? It would seem I forgot my bling. Oh shit. And I love it so. I say, let me hit it anyway. There we go. The Justinian connection, Jenner's revolution, and being real. You bet this is gonna be a little bit controversial. Can't you see that we're talking about China? It can be dangerous, but even still, I do believe we need to be the one. Say hey and where you're from. Would love to know who is here with me when you get here. Hey, hey, won't you get lip on today? What spiritual questions do you have about life and the universe? Or those God forsaken emotions we don't know what to do with? What about them? Those emotions, so oftentimes we don't really know what to do. Unfortunate? What is unfortunate? What's unfortunate? I responded to someone earlier. About my opinion of someone in the public eye who's got a lot of attention, but ultimately I don't believe fully that what they are guiding people towards necessarily is helping the people that they are guiding towards an unproven experience. The one guiding them to has not yet made it through, and so they say, trust me to lead the way. I'll get there at the same time as you and call it mine. Whoa, whoa, towards it. Whoa, 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 oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, 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 the connection with China's revolution that's happening live now. You see how we have been deceived to believe it's not what I always thought it was. Ooh, 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 ooh. Oh, emergency, China has erupted revolution.
Welcome to a very special report. We are now talking about what's going on in China at the moment. In fact, since last night, we've seen massive uprisings breaking out throughout China.
We have seen massive uprisings. I'm just gonna leave it so it continues to stream. And hopefully you can see the uprising in China, because the people have finally got to the end of their knot. And what I found interesting is this shirt has a tight neck, and there's a lot of symbolic significance to that word. I know for sure is that if we are willing to see how the ones who have been on the stage selling out. The people are the ones who now will be called to pay by the people. But what the people didn't realize before the real eyes, the inner eye of the intuition that the soul hired ahead of time to heal and be whole. Here it would say, people nay, because when we cause harm, loss, or fraud to another, we find though we are the ones who will pay, not just with flesh or blood or time. We actually pay energetically and on a soul level if we'll allow entities to steal our power through the identities that we take on, and then let the entity in it feed off the ID. We say, okay, hey, let me play with you today. And if you say, I gotta play this way, okay, I can, but then. But at what point did we say we stopped being private when we stepped in the public and then were converted into the thing that we were doing before we were the subject and had a verb that we did until we stepped into the public and the corporation orated its rules and applied it to me and said, you take on a title, you can become the thing you do. What's it to you? Well, who is you? Did you know it's plural? It's not what we thought before when we were not taught how powerful we are before God, and now are called to read. And so I say, I'm just gonna post something quickly on another page while I do and my computer thinks about it. If you want to join me live and comment with me there. Ooh. Ooh. We're getting there. We are getting there, seriously. Okay, but I'm just going to share this to a couple Facebook groups. If you do the same, it would really help me out. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. And the people of China, we salute you. I am just kind of sharing that because I do believe that it's important that we stand up and we not only push love, but we actually see that those who are brave enough to do these things in places where there is more threatening consequences for doing so, they need to be supported. And we are the ones that can support them. This man is literally saying, I choose liberty or death, but do not confine me. I will not be an animal. I will not be told where I can go, when I can do it, what I can do, who I can do it with. I will not be told. This is what the people of China are saying after so long of not being allowed to do any of it. And we've all just simply sat around as global citizens, quote unquote, which is not what I identify as now that I have claimed the right to be a woman in my private capacity, with all common law rights reserved at all times, including the right to lawfully self-govern myself as the woman that need no man to claim that I am part of his clan and then claim there are rules applied to me because of the belonging. Though I do have a man that I am committed to. So that's really wonderful. And there's a conjoining of anything when you bring things together. So this is where we separate what we were talking about with China, my personal life, which we're not going to talk about, because I'm maintaining my right to simply say, yeah, I've got a man. And I also claim the right to maintain privacy between what he and I choose to do together. And that I don't choose to involve a corporate entity into the identity that we have together. Obviously, we're still new, but also thinking longer term, because when you meet someone you want to build with, it's like you choose. And this is what the people in China are being called to do right now. It's just like I'm talking about a life-giving thing of unifying and bonding with a mate that I want to build a life with, compared to on the screen where you see that in that moment, actually, this man who was being arrested was actually saved by the people. Oh my, okay. So here we go. That's great. Yay. Oh my God. I was talking about my personal relationship at the time when the people were saving the man that would have went down if his clan hadn't come round to save him. Okay, so thank you for bearing with me through all of that. I want to see whether any comments have been made, which I do not yet see, but I do have a chat that allows me to see all of the responses from Facebook and YouTube via Restream. So please, 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 please share something, post something, give a comment, say something significant more than sexual. That is less appreciated ever, because ultimately it feels like a violation of what is innocent to then be corrupted in a way that is not necessary, I feel. So that's kind of my perspective on sexual innuendo, because I do believe that we do need to create a sacred container with the one that we want to mate with. And then to actually want to mate with someone is a big deal. I've never really got there until, like, when life happens, and then it's just like, oh wait, this is fun. That might be fun, right? And then it's just like you see a different world entirely because of who you want to see that world with, right? It's just like I've been single since like 2015 largely, other than for brief stints of time. But ultimately, that's a long time to just be doing me, right? And then to kind of get back into relationship and being in relationship is an adjustment in self-image. It's just like no longer am I free to just kind of like roam and do all that I want on my own, which I am still, but now I also have, a man to keep an eye on, just to like be like, okay, where's he? Where am I? Let's kind of be together without needing to necessarily be side by side the whole time, right? It's just like when you go to an event, it's great to be able to meet other people compared to just like stick with the one that you came with the entire time. Though that is more comfortable. And, at Freedom's birthday party, I largely did that too. And it was commented on by a friend that ultimately just noticed I didn't mingle and go meet people the way that I did before. And it's just like, well, yeah, but that's because I already found where I want to be. So it's just like I don't need to keep moving. It's just like I want to be right here with him, right? So we kind of figure these things out, but this personal diatribe is relevant also to what's going on in China, because ultimately love is winning, and we have heart walls that we need to bring down. All of us, we've all been traumatized, and if we don't have post-traumatic stress disorder from the experience of going through a mass psyop, which is a psychological operation where our minds were being fucked with and we didn't have a choice because we didn't know what was happening, that's pretty horrifying. PTSD makes sense, except if we actually start to see the PTSD as the disordered thinking that got us into a corner in the first place, because we didn't know where to go from there. And it felt like we were at the bottom, which meant then there was a punisher or a persecutor and a rescuer up above us, because we got at the bottom of the victim triangle. which is Cartman's drama triangle. And we were looking at the one that was causing us harm. And we were looking at the one that we needed to save us because we didn't believe that we could do it ourselves. But now I'm saying, hey, we can actually flip that victim triangle upside down so that the victim becomes the victor, because in its sacred side, it is. The sacred victim is actually the guardian of our innocence, I do believe. It's like, if I grab my book, literally, Laura J, that's meh. But the victim triangle is a fantastic demonstration of how the victim, saboteur, prostitute, and child all have a healthy side and a dysfunctional side. The dysfunctional side is called the scared side, and the functional side is the sacred side. And what I had said was that the victim was a guardian, and it's not of innocence, because that's what the child archetype is in its sacred side. The victim archetype is the guardian of self-esteem, which is why on Monday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, if you're available, you can come back here to YouTube, Laura J's channel here. Welcome to Laura J's World. And we're going to go into weaving stronger inner webs. Inner is an acronym. I break it down in this book as well, which I would love for you to be able to gain access to. It's on page 96. But the one that I really want to focus on, since it's not in the book, is webs, which is self-worth, self-esteem, self-belief, and inner security. This is where I want to connect and start to learn to hack the nervous system. I want you to understand the autonomic nervous system in a way that I didn't have any idea about before I went through what I did, and my nervous system got completely hacked and triggered and wired into the larger picture. And it was just like, ooh, I was buzzing, literally. It was like high voltage electricity flowing through me spiritually. And I didn't want to tone it down because it was a lot of fun. It's fun to ride the magic of the moment. If we're honest, it's a lot of fun to be so in the flow that magic is happening all around you. And you're like, yo, that's awesome. Woo! Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, you too? Amazing, right? Like, it's fun to feel popular in the universe without anyone else's participation consciously. It's just like, oh yeah, you showed up for me. Oh yeah, you too. Yeah, baby, let's dance. Woo! Brrr. Yeah. Have your own little fun chemical pharmacy party inside of you without the addition of anything outside, because you already have it all inside. Your nervous system, when it's hacked, when it's jacked in, when you're plugged into high voltage material, the matter I am, the material world, when we're dialed into the spiritual realm, oh my, the material realm gets a lot more interesting, because it's just like, we become supercharged. Law of attraction. In action, you get what you desire faster back to you. Now, I did mention the guardian of the child archetype and the victim archetype. The child archetype is the guardian of innocence or inner sense, where you sense things ahead of time because it's like, my third eye, my sixth sense knows things. You don't need to just see dead people with your sixth sense. You just see spirit. You see energy with your sixth sense. That's your intuition, which is the teacher your soul hired ahead of time to guide you in this lifetime as you in a different view, or with a different view for your higher self, is able to look down and say, hey, be forewarned. Pretty handy. But the prostitute and the saboteur also have guardian sides to them when not in their scared side too. Okay, so the prostitute has the guardian of faith, actually, as the sacred aspect or expression of it. And the saboteur is the guardian of choice. Those two archetypes, few of us want to admit that we have, few of us want to admit it's a familiar pattern that just gets filled in with energy anytime we start doing what the people in China are now doing with real consequence, harsh consequence, not just like getting thrown into a cell here in Canada, though it can get very bad there also, because I tuned into that pattern energetically when they wheeled me in there to show I wasn't able to walk on my own 2 feet. So they had to wheel me to show I was incapacitated. Therefore, I had to be a ward of their ward within the Mental Health Act, which was an act I never agreed to play in, but my person was bound to the jurisdiction of the ward of the institution of the corporation of the bigger corporations that were all feeding off of my person, who finally just surrendered and said, I'm too magical, you need to do some tests. I think that I have extra DMT in my system because I tried 8 DMT dimethyltryptamine experiences with a shaman in February to April timeframe 2019. It blew my world completely open. I was looking for a breakthrough, and then I totally got it 6 months later when I basically tuned into the reality of the insanity of this reality. And then it was just like, holy fuck, what do we do with all of this? I thought the food was poisoned at the institution because our food supply is being poisoned with all of the chemtrails that are falling on our common lands that we have a responsibility for and towards, because ultimately it is the lands that we stand on commonly that we are collectively causing harm to by participating in a fraud. And I know that omerta is real. It's the Italian mob code, but it translates to bike culture and pretty much any other cult, which is at the foundation of the cult you are, which is what the Chinese people are rebelling against right now. And did you know a corporation can only proclaim things, which is to declare information in the public, compared to we who are able to make claims and then stand on those claims in the private or public? For we are actually real to be able to do things compared to a corpse that can only have things moved for it. Pieces on a puzzle board game. Are you bored? Are you stiff as a board? Are you going to cross the boardwalk and collect your $200 as per Monopoly, where we have all been monopolized on through the capitalization of us without our even knowing it, with the capitalizing of letters? Did you know that when the alphabet was first bet on and the alpha was said to be the best brainwave state that the people would be best led astray from to ensure the power remained with the people in the know? You only got to know about the alpha state through the alphabet you learned to bet on your whole life. Until then, you found out that there's actually a deeper meaning to all of it. And then when you step into a court of law, it's of multiple jurisdictions, because there's a judge in each of the letters that represent something each of their own. That's what acronyms do. And we didn't think that the law was an acronym, but then we found out it was. And it's not court of laws, because space is God's territory, or the creator evolves. But once incorporated, that is no longer all. The incorporated part is separate. It is still part of the same. For if you have a glass of water that comes from the ocean, is it still ocean water, or is it now just water because it's in a glass separate from the ocean? That is what we have to ask ourselves when we see ourselves to just be the body. That's when we then see the corporation having a corporeal body or a corporate body. And that's then when we see the legislative body and all of the other bodies that are brought on board the vessel of you when you identify with each of those bodies. Then the entity that preys on that body is able to feed off of that part of you that is mixed in with all of the other good stuff. So you have no idea that that part of you is actually the Trojan horse within your inner realms. Your belief systems make up the BS that Trojan horse is now going to interfere with. The belief systems that kept you safe before that Trojan horse is going to interfere with. We have to decide whether we are going to be the ones that plant the Trojan horse of a better idea than what already existed in here, that the ones that exist here don't want to accept because that requires adjustment and change, and they don't want that. They're comfortable. Well, we want that. So we can either plant it intentionally for the Trojan horse to penetrate our inner realms and then start to bubble with excitement and delightment because of the extra chemicals that we naturally generate because we learn how to hack our nervous system and then actually activate our own DMT, our own serotonin, melatonin, dopamine, all of these chemicals that we naturally thrive on, if not in survival mode, for those are the polar experiences of the same experience, is it not? It's time for us to come back to the present now moment and see how we have been capitalized on with the letters that we have used to write our scripts and stories previously. The tales that we have told, the myths and stories of old that have made us think that others were better because they existed and were able to weather the storms that they faced, forgetting that we are facing those storms. And the reason our story has not yet been written is because we are still writing it with our lives. It is time for us to see the power that we each collectively hold individually, independently, when we see the power of individualism and also the nature of collectivism and how we have been forced to focus on survival instead of thrival, like focus. Because if we focused on thriving, we wouldn't need to feed the beast or machine anymore, where we would be able to be interconnected through our intuition, our nervous system, the intra connection of the intranet between us. The Akashic field contains all information, which we always thought was said to be the words written for us to see. But when I went through the experience of thinking I had information others could benefit from and it didn't go anywhere, that's when I found out that the information is actually what we must be as the ones who see ourselves side by side in formation or at a distance, but knowing where one another are. That is what warriors must be able to do. I've said for years, at least since the beginning of all of this, which is why I've done pretty much all of what I've done for free most of this time. Warriors need to be able to recognize one another. We need to know where we are, and then we need to know where we're going collectively because we choose the vision, because we are the lighthouses. And when lighthouses fall, boats get out of the way. And then they blame the boat for not helping them be able to see where the shoreline was. So when they fucked up their boat, because you weren't there to show them that the shoreline was too close to where they were, they blamed you. And then on top of having fallen down and been absolutely hailed around by a storm that you almost didn't survive as the lighthouse that is still just trying to pull yourself back together, you're listening to all the lying of those that don't even know they are lying, which is what denial is. Didn't even know I am lying. Denial, totally. Didn't see that. It's your fault. I didn't see that. I didn't see that. It's your fault. I didn't see that. Whose fault is it that you didn't see that? So we, the lighthouses, have been spaced out around this planet T of heart in a different order, which is what Earth is. Listen. Silent. Another. Same letters, different order. Words are tricky. They're spells. That's why we spell them out. And if your hands are busy with someone else's war, your arms will carry arms of weapons to harm another man or woman you create soul ties with. Did you know? This is where I wanted to go with this. We're creating soul ties between one another. Every time we lie, in the name of Omerta, protecting the lie, in the name of protecting the society, in the name of upholding the tradition, in the name of staying loyal and in honor with those who lied because they just thought that was what was supposed to happen. It's like it's the new bride that gets married, and her and her husband are going to have a pork loin roast for the first time. And basically they're cutting it, and she cuts it down to 9 inches and throws out the end. And he's like, dude, what did you just do that for? Like, we're now married. Like, you just threw out perfectly good meat and you could have cooked it, and I don't understand what's going on. Why did you just do that? And she's like, well, my mom always did it that way. And he's like, well, find out why your mother did it that way, because like my family doesn't do it that way. And it turns out like that there's nothing different about that piece of meat that you're just throwing out compared to the piece of meat you're leaving. So like, let's find this out. So she calls her mom, and she says, well, grandma always did that. Like, mom always did it that way. So, well, we're having a dinner tonight. So the 3 generations were all around the dinner table, including the new husband. So they're all sitting there, and they asked grandma, why do you cut the end of the roast off when you're cooking it? And she said, what? What? No, I just only ever used to do that because that was the size of the pan that your grandfather and I were given for our wedding gift. Like, it was too small for the roast, so I had to cut some of it off. Everyone was blown away that for 3 generations, women in this family had been doing things in an irrational way simply because of the circumstances the original one what had upon her, and then the other ones just thought that would be the condition that they needed to impose upon themselves, for it was what had come before them. That's insane. Absolutely insane. Hey, grounded bull analytic eye. I always mess that up the first time I try, but then I wonder why. Just kidding. Hey, you were here for a while. How come it only just showed now? Interesting. Well, anyway, so we lighthouses need to know where one another are so that we don't get stuck at the bottom of that victim triangle. We can actually flip it upside down so we take advantage of the guardian aspects of the sacred sides of the survival archetypes that actually help us create lives within the worlds that we are creating that we enjoy living. Because that's the point. The whole purpose is to live a good life. The whole purpose. You know, I'm going to be very honest, as I always am. But when I was writing the book, I was really trying to be the expert. I really wanted to be the one that had got there first and then came back and shared the details with you. You know, I wanted to have arrived. I wanted to feel better than, in some ways, if I'm honest, from a subconscious level, probably. So I had ego shit going on. And any of those specks of extra that we don't wish for or are not conscious of ultimately contaminate the whole oftentimes. So being aware of that so that we can be aware of that. When I was writing that book and I wanted to be the expert, I kept on going through so many things, and it would set me back. It would set me back. It would set me back. So I had to reintegrate then. Not reintegrate, but then I had to integrate all that had just showed up. Plus I had to resolve what I had just healed by moving some of the energies in motion from the past that also showed up in the moment. Because that's what momentums of energy do. They show up in the now moment, and it's like, poof, this huge eruption. And you're like, but it was just something small. How did that happen? I didn't mean to step there. Well, it's because you just got hit with the momentums of not now moments. You left energy in. So now all of your energy is rushing back to you in the now, creating this explosion. And you're like, holy fuck. Well, just breathe through it and keep moving. That's what it's all about. We just keep moving. We use expletives. I believe that swear words can be sentence enhancers occasionally, but not to overuse them. Just use them for emphasis occasionally and for emphasis and to be aware of why you're bringing it in, you know? That's what I try to do when I use them, these expletives. But ultimately, I hope this has been useful to you. And I didn't even touch on the Justinian deception because ultimately we have a prime minister whose last name is True Game. So think of it that way, because we are living in a sporting environment. It's a hunting season. We have to apply for a license for so that we can lie to the senses about when we can do the thing that the license says that we can only do at a certain time that would be approved by the corpse that would orate its diction and rules to be applied to the one that took on the status it had created, therefore owned, and had ownership over. And two, the status is all that the corpse has rights to or claim to. It can make proclamations, but we can make claims. When we see another man or woman's name and say, you are the one that is causing me harm, loss, fraud, participating in something untrue that would make me feel less in order for you to feel more. It is not true, it is not okay, and it is not permitted to go on any longer than what it already has, which is why I've been saying since the very beginning, we need to be taking the suits off of all of these people so that we see that the man known as Justin Trudeau, for instance, who has been acting as the prime minister of the corporation known as Canada, who has been approving orders that have been causing men and women like myself harm and loss by participating in fraud he has personally benefited from. I believe that we can make claims against him in his private capacity that actually give us legs to stand on. I can only do it as a woman, and class action suits, lawsuits, are not in our best interest either, because we are more powerful when each of us individually does it. Individe you ally, individe you all, individual. Individually, we can move a lot faster. Now we can also get into traps faster, hopefully out of them faster, and then be able to share the results with those who are coming up from behind unsuspecting, like what I did with the Mental Health Act. I went in, holy fuck, I survived, got myself out, and then I came out and I said, hey guys, that's a trap, that's a slaughterhouse. They don't tell you about that one. We don't think that it's relevant, but if you have a competing belief system, aka cognitive dissonance, to the mainstream narrative that's being pushed by the media that's in cahoots with the government and the other officials that are all promoting this mainstream narrative that was outlined in Event 201, such as what I wrote in the book, just to remind you so that you say, hey, you mentioned that there and then again today, so maybe I'll actually look it up and see that it was predictive programming at its finest as to what to do if there were to be a pandemic. How would the officials respond? Are you fucking kidding me? Let's be serious. I'm being a little bit more profane in my use of the F word, the F bomb, today and yesterday than what I have been recently, because I do believe that SpongeBob SquarePants got it right when he said that swear words are sentence enhancers. I like that. So that's why I haven't been holding back. And because my energy is flying quite high right now, because I did create this message because we've all heard about Chinada. We've all heard about how the man known as Justin Trudeau is working with the organization called the CCP that even the Chinese people themselves are rebelling against. And we think that it's going to be in our best interest. I had a dream about the CCP and it wasn't kind to us. It was where I saw how the divide and conquer war strategy that has been implemented by the traditional family model being nuclear, where everyone needs to kind of come together and fit and form to conform so that we can kind of belong and get along, you know, within the family unit. of people that are completely different oftentimes than what we are, compared to when we are actually willing to stand as an original and say what we think and not have to worry about political correctness. Because there are some, I'll admit, in my own family that believe that I am socially inappropriate and that I say a lot of things that I shouldn't. And I identify patterns that shouldn't be exposed, which is true. And I did it very dysfunctionally when I went through my awakening, that ultimately was me tuning into the energetic patterns of a lot of things that didn't make sense before. It was insane. Hey, Tristan, awesome to see you here too. Woohoo! Oh, I love it. Yeah, finally. My restream is allowing me to stream to Facebook and YouTube too. That's exciting. So this is a message because Justin Trudeau and the CCP may be in business together, but that's public. And I claim the right to be a woman in my private capacity, as you can as well. And what we stand on is the common law, which is unwritten, uncapitalized, and unhyphenated, which means it's never been boxed in. So we can draw from it at any time with creative liberty, as every creator can. Oh, I hear the ring. I'm just reminding you. That's the thing you need to be reminded of. As a creator, you can draw from the unlimited rights that you have access to, compared to a corpse, which is limited because it's already dead. It's been written. So then the corpse is limited by what was already drawn. You see the difference? When we are living, we draw from what is unlimited. When we are limited, we can draw from what has already been drawn up in the contract of the contracted state compared to the expanded state. You see? You see? You feel me? That's where it's at, in the heart. The earth. Why do you think they get us to walk on our souls all day in the name of wearing shoes? Walk on your souls. Those shoes will make you more whole. If you walk on your souls and forget that the O-L-E would be the S-O-U-L instead. If you see the soul as the S-O-L-E of the soul on the shoe, but then we see it's because we've been trained to walk on our souls, to discard spirituality, but spirit, you all tie your identity to spirit. You all tie your identity to. It is true, the spirit you came from and belong to through it all. Even though you cannot see it with your own eyes, you'll be able to feel it. The law of resonance is how you actually can be the one that you have been waiting for. Yes, you are the one you've been waiting for. Yes, you are the one that you've been waiting for. It's time for me to wrap this up and simply say, China needs our prayers, but please, when you pray, don't become prey to an entity that would feed off the power you get from the identity. There's an entity, an identity. You've got to see the entities that's been feeding off of you. Yeah. How you feeling off of what feels good to you, and others have been feeding off of you. They won't like it if you change your mind or heart or soul or your body, because then their love for you has to change and they maybe don't want to. So please know you're loved and it's time to smile like that. throughout your day and to say, China's calling for our support. I'll end this with just a story. When I taught English to children in China, I love that I'm sharing this at 9:55 a.m. on December 3rd, the day that I won the incentive trip, where I received the announcement of it, which was the 1-year anniversary from when I joined Neil's Yard Remedies Organic also. So it's a significant day for me. And then to be also speaking into the Justinian deception connection and China's revolution, that is just like, wow, my heart. So when I was teaching these young ones and their parents too, because they sat behind the cameras, I'm sure, and then also learned as I spoke and taught their child, they were paying enough to have me with anyway through the company I was commissioned through as a contractor. But my point is when I did this, what I realized was that I was an ambassador for peace for my country. I may have been the only one that some of my students knew from my country, the lands here in Canada. I may be the only one that Chinese child knew who came from China. But they knew Teacher Laura GP, as I was called then, not by my own name, nor one that I got to choose, but one that I was assigned, which is fine. But the point is, I was an ambassador for peace because I knew that some of those children could be potentially prepared to be recruited by the CCP. Crazy, I know, right? But think about it. This is what was going on in my mind while I was teaching some of these online children. What if it's like the story that Carolyn Miss told about the Native man that had a really hard tribal life and left to go on his own on an adventure with a friend from the village too, I do believe. And they were moving about doing what they were doing. And they met this young German boy who was also doing the same. So these 3 vagabonds basically tag teamed and teamed up to then travel together and go around. And there was a war on at the time. So the native boy was actually a sketch artist. So he was sketching various things. And he ended up actually sketching some tankers that were stationed in this area, that when Japanese soldiers found him, they wanted him, or they basically said that he was working for the enemy. So they took him hostage and they treated him really, really poorly. And they nailed his feet to the ground and made him stand there for days. And they didn't feed him well and all of it. And it was a pretty traumatic experience for this man. And he was really near death's door. And basically, they ended up that we're going to transport him to his doom. And this was years later after he ended up working. So this was after the boys had been moving around and sketching and having fun and growing up together. And then they kind of parted ways because the war broke out. And that was when then this native man got caught and then became a prisoner of war and had all of these horrible tortures that took place that really fragmented his soul. And he was just about to die when then he was going to be transported to the concentration camp that would kill him in the end. And this German boy he had been friends with, traveling with while growing up, was the soldier in passing that was to put him on the train to his doom. And they recognized one another when they saw each other's eyes. And then he made other arrangements. And then this man wound up getting saved and wound up in a veterans camp. And there's more to this story, in that this man actually then spent a long time in the veterans camp, and he in the hospital, and he healed, and he did recover, but basically he was told he would never walk again, and so he would have to spend his entire life there. And so he decided to do one last pilgrimage to his village, where he had left when he was a child and had never intended to come back to, and never intended to return to after that either. And he went there, and the tribal elders, the community gathered and looked at him and his condition, and they said he needs to call his spirit back. And so that's what they helped him do. And to do it, they threw him into water, into this pool of water. This man that can't swim, who's been paralyzed, who has just been, his body is so traumatized and storing so much terror and pain and constriction. He can't, victims can't. And I'm not, no complaints, no judgments. Like, can you imagine how much this man went through? Like having your feet fucking nailed to the floor? No. Like we'd all shatter and fragment aspects of ourselves if that happened to us, I would imagine. But this man, because of the community he came from in the beginning of his life, had the compassion and the farsightedness to see what his soul needed. They threw him into a pool and said, you fight, and you call back every part of your soul that you have left in a not now moment. You fight for all of it. And they made him fight, literally. And so he's in this pool fighting for his life. And he said he had pictures and images flashing of all of these memories when he had left part of himself in a not now moment, like what's happening in China, what's been happening throughout the certificate of XID AI psyop that we've all been subject to throughout the last 2 years, and then everything else that's been going on throughout all of this, like all of those fragments. He said he saw all these pictures, and then at the end he saw the face of this soldier. And I don't know that it was the same soldier that had seen him and saved him and had him sent somewhere else, but this German soldier had basically it was the one that he couldn't forgive, because what this native man remembered was how this German soldier would shove maggots into his mouth, and disgusting stuff that makes your mouth salivate because you're like, oh, I want to like puke, right? I'm sorry to be so crude and graphic, because like we're really into it, or at least I am in telling the story. But this German soldier used to put these things in his mouth, and this native man, while he was calling his soul fragments back, while he was fighting for his life, literally, this German soldier, he couldn't forgive this German soldier for that torture. Like the other stuff was horrible, but that was the worst. And what was so amazing in the process, and this is a story Carolyn Miss told in one of her programs that I've taken throughout the years, which are many. The face of this German soldier came to the native man as he fought for his life in the pool and said, it was the only food I could find to keep you alive. So the worst thing that this native man experienced was actually the most that that man could offer him. And he did. And in the moment of understanding, compassion, connection, empathy, forgiveness actually allowed the native man to then walk and be a shamanic teacher of the lands, because he called enough of himself back to the moment to be able to carry on, as we are called to do now. You never got the notification. Saskatchewan, Canada, ready to battle for your dominion rights. Amazing. Recognize that dominion and freedom are well connected, Lone Wolf. And I love that you've brought in the lone wolf connection, for we are all lone wolves and must be. However, the lone wolves must also know how to come back into the communities without trying to bring the warrior essence and nature with us. It's also free domain, because it is the domain that we step into that claims jurisdiction, that can proclaim jurisdiction rather, not claim it. For only men and women can claim things. Corporations can proclaim things, and proclaim is to declare publicly. So D is to take away from, and clare is clarity. So to take away clarity from the individual, the group has to share an entity's identity that the individual conforms our substance in order to fit into the forms of. And this is why freedom and being free are different. And so it's really important to start really thinking of it, because if we have freedom, it can be taken away or given to us, issued or retracted. But being free is a state of mind, mentality, and our attitude directly determines our altitude, for it is the glass ceiling on our identity and our self-image. I'm in the process of learning how to talk with commoners and not lose my virtue, and walk with kings nor lose my common touch. It's hard. Everyone is my teacher, and I thank you, sister. My absolute pleasure. And with that, I would also say, what is a king? But a man that was proclaimed to be something other than he originally was, in order to make others feel they can be knighted, which makes them other than they originally were, all in the name of being corrupted and perverted and converted into a fiction, to make us think our diction needs to be limited by what has already been written, when we can use compared to, or CF, which means to confer. C.F, look it up. If you reference legislation using CF, or to compare, compared to rather, compared to or CF, next to legislation, that means I'm referencing the legislation that public servants are bound by. And as a man or woman acting as a public servant, you're now reminded in your private capacity to push this onto me, who has claimed my right to be private, a woman in my private capacity with all rights reserved at all times, lawfully self-governing. To impose your rule onto me means you, the woman or man, is the one causing me harm that I will make a claim against. And this is how we take the suits off of everyone. No longer can Justin Trudeau say that his rules apply to me, who is lawfully self-governing, if I claim the right to do so, which I have. And I had a COVID charge from April 2021 that got stayed in September of this year, because I believe of the lawful notices that I have used to put them on notice in their private capacity, and to say that any man or woman that would try to continue moving a false claim against me in a public court would be doing so against their own conscience. And for it to have been stayed means that the ones acting on behalf of the corpse, that are supposed to be the conscience of the corpse, basically said it would be unconscionable for them to move it forward any further without exposing the fiction or implicating themselves in the process. So they had to step back. It was completed. Are you effing kidding me? After more than a year and a half, your virtual reality simulation experience is completed. You can advance to the next level, which means doing nothing and feeling like what you did was nothing, because we're not going to acknowledge any of it. And you're going to hopefully take that personally, so that we can eventually gain power over you again. Have a great day, your government. Well, I'm just being facetious, obviously, but whoever signed on behalf of your government is the woman or man who was causing me harm by moving forward with any of that. And this is how we actually take the masks off. I am the meek that has inherited this earth. I only need to stand my found to prove I am who I say. Oh, to stand my ground, to prove I am who I say I am. Well, what is the definition of meek? I would ask you to ask Google or wherever you get your information from. And we have inherited the earth. I would inquire as to the breakdown of Herit. And then this earth is the heart that we walk on and can start to rhythmically attune ourselves to if we are willing to do the inner work, so that we actually are able to access the gateway that the heart is to the inner earth. And proving your ground, you make claims, you stand on those claims, you then claim the right to be in a competent jurisdiction, which means no legalese is spoken. And you can also put in your own terms and definitions. You make your claims via notice. All of those claims are already done. You're creating evidence. This is the thing. Everyone has just gotten so used to leave it to a professional. Well, a professional is no longer an original, which means they're no longer real, which means, like accountants and lawyers have to swear oaths, to whom doctors too, all the ones that get paid a lot of money to deceive others in the name of being an authority. Honest, kind, showing humility, forgiving, and showing unconditional love and empathy. Meek is not weak, God's strongest warriors. Indeed, yes. Meek is not weak. I like that. Meek is not weak, God's strongest warriors are honest, kind, showing humility, forgiving, and showing unconditional love and empathy. Intuition and imagination too. It's time for us to recognize your 3 minutes of words. Three minutes of words can change our lives. And so I congratulate you for being willing to do what you felt, to not put a policy enforcement vehicle on notice. No mask, I believe in that too. And that's my job. I have a chapter in my book on a cashier standing for freedom on the front lines until I couldn't, because I wouldn't wear a mask on my face if it didn't do anything. I'm send your pure love and light from my world to yours, and I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate you, and I send you love in China too, and all the others who are willing to do the revolution. Actually, evolution, it's time for us to see we have been the ones fighting ourselves. I've got cat scratches, little kitten scratches, and then the 2 dogs fighting. And the snowflake obsidian bracelet to be protective with the onyx too. It's true, that is how you can use the tools around you if you believe in them. And if you don't, well, then leave them. They won't work if you don't actually believe they do anything. So it's up to you, whether you do or you don't, you choose. My hope is that you will just choose and use this how you will. Leave a comment down below or share with a friend who could use some prayers, not to be prayed on, but to actually get a little love. Let's send it to them now. It's true, we can ground the love into the world by doing it one at a time right now. When you get here, do it with me. Send love all around. Imagine you are the center of love. Conformity is doing what everyone else is doing. When right or wrong, we think not on it. We just go with the flow. Morality is doing what's right, no matter what everyone else is doing or who's watching. God is watching. That's truth we ought to pay attention to. Energy is the true value exchange in the universe. It's true, I thank you. And now I will go. Have a great day, yo.